2022 has flown by, a year where we had to adopt to a lot of things because it was a no COVID year. We changed how we work, and on the energy front, it was the worst year ever for South Africa. Today, I am talking to Viviene Pearson, CEO of SAIA, about SAIA's year that was, and some of the things we can look forward to in SAIA's space. Great to catch up, Viviene.
Great. It's great to be here.
Please summarize SAIA's year for us, the good, the bad, and maybe the interesting.
Yeah, thank you for that question, because I would actually sort of define 2022 for SAIA as an interesting year in the main. Interesting, and you have mentioned COVID. It was very interesting to me how difficult, after it being so difficult to adapt to working from home in 2020. And then, everybody got so used to it and everybody adjusted a lot. And when we had to come back to the office, it was very difficult for some people, and we're still struggling. So it was also interesting to me the way in which people have changed, and some people prefer to be at home. Some cases it works well, in some cases it doesn't really. And I think that's typical for the industry as well. So we've seen a lot of movement of people, not at SAIA particularly, but reportedly in the industry, where people really have changed the way they're thinking about working, and where they want to work from. So that was quite interesting, and it was also. So there was resistance. We had more of a problem with getting people back to the office than we actually got them, to go working from home. So yes, that's internally, something that we had to deal with. Also, of course, you mentioned load shedding as well. And that really impacted everybody, the economy, the industry. And from the industry point of view, and it relates to SAIA in the sense that we work a lot on the sustainability of the industry. That's really one of our main reasons for being. And in terms of the risk, with increasing load shedding, and it's not going to stop anytime soon, as well as the potential risk, which we still think is small, but it's increasing a little bit every now and again, of total grid failure. Clearly, the insurers are going to change what they cover. So that would lead to, I guess we've already started seeing it, maybe some exclusions, etc. in the policies, some policy wording changes, and especially keep in mind that we learned a hard lesson from the CBI saga. And we've had lots of interactions lately this year with the brokers who are worried about the potential confusion and actually lack of clarity of the changed wordings from a policyholder point of view, in terms of what is covered and what's not. So to sort of mitigate that, we have sort of made the regulators aware of this. Our members are aware of it. And we've done, from a SAIA point of view, a lot of education around to policyholders in the media about make sure what is covered and what's not, understand these issues. So we did a lot of work on that from a SAIA point of view. And then obviously we're sitting with climate change, and the floods in April in KZN sort of demonstrated that. And then one of the very big challenges that we think we are facing from a SAIA point of view, industry point of view, and country point of view, is the deteriorating infrastructure. So if you sort of compare that, well, not compare it, link it with the floods, for example, and any kind of climate risk that's coming down the road, and the infrastructure is damaged even more, or wasn't in a state of good maintenance in the first place, then it sort of makes that the losses so much higher. So that obviously we dealt a lot as an industry and from a SAIA point of view around the floods and the way the claims should be handled or not should be handled, rather informing policyholders how they should go about it. The industry obviously had lots of losses, and we're still seeing the impact of the floods today in KZN. We all know about the beaches and everybody wanting to go on holiday. And yeah, it's bad for the province, it's bad for business, it's bad for, you know, everybody. So those are the kind of things that are really on our radar and has been for a while. And then to sort of, so that I think that was a little bit about the bad. The good, really, we had a big win as the non-life insurance industry at large with the decision of the Financial Intelligence Center to exclude the non-life insurance industry from the ambit of that act. And it's typical of a SAIA project where it took us at least 2 years or so, 2.5 years to lead up to that decision. Because firstly, we had to create better understanding of the industry with the FIC, and then that allowed them and build a trust relationship with them, and that allowed them to give us the leeway to do the study through Deloitte and Touche, in terms of the risk assessment, and together with the FIA and SOMA. So that is a big win for the industry, and I would like to venture that was probably the high point of 2022, the best news that we could have gotten.
That's great. When we operate in a changing industry with a lot of resilient people, you mentioned that. Have you made any interesting changes worth talking about within the SAIA realm, maybe how you operate, any changes in terms of committees that's worth knowing about?
Sure. I didn't think about the committee side, but I will while I talk about other things. So yes, I think there are lots of changes. So SAIA still has a bit of a financial sustainability issue following the closing of IGF, where we earned a management fee for managing that company. And so it's not easy, you know, we've saved and saved, but you can't save forever because then that's sort of impacts the value proposition of SAIA, because most of our expenses are around people. And so on that front, we've made a lot of decisions this year, and I think it's similar to the decisions made by insurance companies and other players in the industry, and that is to downsize, for example, our office space. You know, our boardroom, which is a wonderful boardroom, we're going to lose that and have another one.
Oh,
Which we're all going to miss. Yeah, and so that's one side of things. We also started going back to physical meetings and so on, but not necessarily, we haven't had a lot of committee meetings that are physical. I think that part will probably change forever, although there is definitely a need for physical meetings or in-person meetings. We've seen that. So we had our first in-person CEO roundtable and annual cocktail function this year again. Which was good. Unfortunately, I couldn't attend it because I was ill. But yes, so that was different from the years before. And then in terms of our focus areas, and that speaks to staff, the type of people we have wonderful people, but we're going to shift a little bit in the future to include more data-related activities and experts. Now, for SAIA, I mean, we can't now go and have a whole new data department, but we have appointed, we started on the 1st of December, a data specialist. Data in terms of not necessarily only technology, but one of our key priority areas, and that's been confirmed again by the board this year, is to tell the story of the industry. That relates to the value of the non-life insurance industry, the successes, the challenges, managing expectations of what insurance can do and what we can't do. And then also in the transformation area, where the industry is often sort of accused of not doing the best job, whereas we actually know that we are, obviously there are challenges, but that we are actually making a lot of progress. But we don't, as SAIA, have the data to support that. So that's the reason for it, and that's to inform our storytelling, but also to sort of identify where are the challenges, what kind of projects can we put to deal with those challenges over time, and where are the highlights so that we can tell the story. So those are a few changes internally from a SAIA point of view that we've gone through this year.
That's very exciting. The data part really excites me. And maybe we can get some nice insights in terms of content from SAIA, where you share some of those data with our audience, which is a critical part of who you're speaking to. So that's very exciting. Vivian, remind our audience, what is your offering to members? What does it mean to be a SAIA member? Maybe you can share some insights on your membership numbers. How's this changed over the years? And is there any predictions or trends that you pick up going forward?
That's a very important question. For an organization such as SAIA, it's very difficult to quantify the value. And we see that, and I know that our members often have to ask, are often asked by their shareholders, saying, what are you paying this for? So it's a very important question that we're always thinking about. So this year, and actually I think starting from COVID, we've really had a very good year in COVID in terms of giving value to our members, information sharing, because we are on the forefront. And I think the biggest value from an organization such as SAIA, and especially with our approach of building relationships and collaborating and finding solutions together with our regulators, government, other role players in the industry, etc. It takes a lot of time to build those relationships. And during the COVID time, we also, because of our excellent relationship with PASA, we could offer our members the assistance to actually, get their staff to participate, for example, in the financial sector worker-based COVID-19 vaccination project. So that was a huge job that we did, and many of our members really appreciated that, especially the smaller ones. But what we learned there also was, that communication with our members, they need to know what we are doing. We need to communicate them. We are on the forefront. We get the news first from the regulators, the government, etc. So that's valuable. And then the speed of disseminating that information. So I think that's a big part of what we have learned is very important. The platform to engage. So we had weekly board meetings with government, the regulators, etc., during that time. So I think that brings a lot of value in terms of relationship building industry-wide. What else did I want to, okay. But we've shifted a little bit in the last 3 years in putting a lot of emphasis on the data side, which there was never much interest in our members sharing the data with us. They were already giving data to the regulators, etc. In terms of telling the story, and informing it. And you mentioned that part. There's a real need for that from an industry point of view, and from an independent body or, broader organizational point of view rather than individual company information. So I think that has become one of our biggest values. And then again, I really think that the value of the relationships we build with all, the important role players, and the outcomes of that collaborative approach was demonstrated, for example, with the decision to not include the industry in the FIC ambit. And if you look at it, if one looks at it from a different point of view, that decision saved our members individually a lot of money in terms of compliance costs and so on and so on.
Yeah.
So there is a way to quantify it. It's just very difficult, and it is. It often takes long for a project to get to that point where the actual value can be felt and can be seen. But we had a good year in terms of our members, our board specifically, our CEOs at the CEO Roundtable. There is absolutely no question in their minds. They have told us that SAIA's biggest value is the relationships and the influencing and the results we get from it, which they as individual member companies don't necessarily easily can get that result. And that is the important part, and that SAIA really delivers on it. So at the moment, I think our members are, in general, very supportive of the value that SAIA brings. So that's really a good place to be.
What lies ahead for SAIA 2023 and beyond?
So I think the biggest, it is really still addressing the challenges around the sustainability of the insurance industry, and specific business classes here and there and specific issues. So, for example, skills development. Now, SAIA's mandate does not involve skills development, but we know that we have an aging workforce and that people are actually retiring. A lot of people are retiring, and a lot of knowledge and skills, and especially technical knowledge in the very specialized business classes this is leaving our industry. And we have a lot of good, new, young, exciting talent in the industry with degrees and all sorts of things. But there needs to be a little bit of attention on the other side of things. So, and this is not our space, it's not our mandate. So we work together very closely with the IASA on this, and specifically with INSITA. And so we've started projects in collaboration with those two partners last year, and we're going to focus a lot on that next year. So yesterday here we had the retirees and the mentees in our retiree repurpose program to have their first workshop, and it's a year-long program funded by INSITA in partnership also with the ISA, to transfer those skills to middle and senior management people who are talented and who are going places. So I think that will be a focus for us. Secondly, and very big focus, and it speaks to the challenges also again of the industry. So we are seeing all these increased risks from potential grid failure or increased load shedding to infrastructure problems, and especially relating to fire and property insurance, because fires, they are huge losses, and the risk is high. And that means that, clearly if the risk is higher and higher and the certainty is becoming more apparent rather than uncertainty about it happening, that's where our focus needs to lie, because the premiums will go up and it may even become unaffordable. And it's important for the economy at large, for insurance to still be a solution in the property environment, and obviously for our industry as well. So, so we're working a lot on fire infrastructure, but also related to that water infrastructure. You can't fight a fire without water infrastructure. And that's one of the risks. We saw what pandemic risk, is like, and how insurable it is. There are other potential systemic risks, such as cyber risk. And then, of course, we have the weather-related risks, which will also increase. So we talking about potential uninsurable risks in the future. And the biggest job that we have, and the biggest challenge that we have, and the thrust that we're going to, to take into 2023 and beyond, is to find shared resilient solutions between us and government for these type of risks, because the protection gap is just getting larger and larger, and it will continue to do so. And insurance is absolutely crucial for economic development and people's financial well-being, and the way in which they can recover after a disaster and so on. So we're almost ready there, where we have proposals to take to the regulators and national treasuries particularly. And there's a lot of work from the National Treasury side as well. So that is a big focus area for us. And part of that is also the decision that we're hoping the FSCA and the regulators will be able to make this year, in terms of allowing parametric stroke index type of insurance products, which is currently not a part of our regulatory environment. There was a pilot done by Santam in our within our SAIA agricultural insurance project last year. And now we're waiting for the decision, which obviously takes a lot of thought and work and research from the regulators to allow that insurance. So we're hoping that that could be a part of a future, shared resilient solution as well. So I think that's more or less going to be our focus areas, other than trying to expand the availability of data, so that we can tell our story even more.
Your job is cut out for you, and you have reminded me of the importance of SAIA, and also the importance of our industry in the wider economy. There's a lot of things that we need to do, and the reality is that collaboration is most certainly in the order of the day. We won't be able to do this alone. A last word to our FAnews audience, Viviene. You come from FAnews, a long history with us. What is your message to our audience?
So I think SAIA's message is exactly what you've said now. There are a lot of challenges in our broader environment, and this is true of the whole world. It's a global problem. It's not only a South African problem.
Absolutely.
We have increased challenges around sustainable economies, sustainable and growing and inclusive economies. We have increased risk in terms of the environment, and we have increased risks in terms of social and political challenges. And again, it is not only true of South Africa. The fact is that our industry is absolutely directly linked to these kind of activities. We saw with the riots and lootings, it ends up in claims. And it brings a lot of trauma, to people in the country. The infrastructure, including Eskom, these are critical things. A growing and inclusive economy, and that's why transformation is also a very big challenge and a very big focus area of SAIA, because that's part of the sustainability of the country as a whole, the environment in which you operate in, and it directly impacts our industry. And so SAIA will continue to collaborate with, build relationships with the the relevant stakeholders, build trust relationship, and work together to to contribute to meeting those challenges head on, whilst that speaks to the sustainability of our industry and the value of our industry. So that is what we do, and that is what we will continue to do. And it is an exciting job. It's a challenging job. It's an important job, and that's why I love it.
Your passion is clear, Vivienne. Thank you for making time to chat. We will most certainly share our message your message as far and wide as possible. And yes, you are playing a very, very critical role in this industry. So keep on doing what you're doing.
Thank you very much, Rianet.